Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 10, Episode 1. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Glad to be with you for the first day of training camp. And Dave, it is Season 10. Congratulations to you. You're like the Simpsons or something.
Yes. Do I get what? Have I hit syndication yet? Don't you?
Yeah,
don't you only
you're
need
on TBS from 7 to 8.
I'm on the Hallmark Channel or something now. Don't you only need something like 100 episodes or something to go into syndication? Then you get them fat royalty checks. Something after that. Yeah, look, I don't know where the time has gone. Seems like yesterday starting the podcast and all, and here we are 10 years later, and obviously the site is a little bit older than the actual podcast is on top of it, but season 10, here we are. And the key thing is Alex, we made it through that last 5.5-6 weeks there, and it's a period of time that we get we get a little bit extra time to ourselves, I think, but obviously we're happiest when we're busy and able to find stuff to write about real easily, and other than rankings and this, that, and the other. It really is trying it sometimes during the day, especially in those final 6 weeks there. But now all of that is behind us. In fact, boy, we got so much to write about and talk about now. As soon as I get done with this podcast, I'm going to be writing for the rest of the night. There's that much out there that we still haven't scratched for the site.
And we're not even at the first day of practice yet. We are recording this Thursday evening. It'll go up obviously Friday, and hopefully you'll listen to it before practice. And then later on this evening, meaning Friday evening, I'll be back from training camp, and we'll recap briefly what happened at day one at camp. But before we do that, because there was much going on today, as the Pittsburgh Steelers reported for their 2019 Steelers training camp, it was a report day and conditioning test, and pretty quiet on that front. We'll start with Mike Tomlin and what he said in his first press conference of training camp. Talking about the injury situation, which is usually how we start these things, so let's begin there. Pretty healthy team overall, but Tomlin did say TJ Watt during that conditioning test felt some hamstring tightness on his left hamstring, so thought he would start on PUP, and then shortly after that, the team officially announced TJ Watt will begin the year on active PUP, but it seems pretty minor.
Yeah, I thought we were going to make it, Alex.
I was really waiting for that first camp without a PUP guy, but
I thought we were going to make it. I started to get a real good feeling, thinking, all right, we're going to open up with nobody on the PUP list here, and that probably would have happened if not for that, Watt during that final part of the conditioning test there, feeling some tightness there in that left hamstring, as you said. And look, this is the same TJ Watt who had some hamstring issues last year, right? Missed several practices and I think 3 preseason games because of that hamstring. They're obviously going to treat him with caution. As they should. I mean, this guy's been around long enough now. 2 seasons. He knows what he's doing on the defensive side of football. You can't have him not healthy come the start of this season. So I know a lot of people are kind of freaking out, if you will. Maybe that's not the right term, but this is a precautionary move, putting him on active PUP, because if he's not on active PUP when training camp begins, and he's not eligible for reserve PUP at that point later on in the season. Not that we expect it to go that long, but you never know about hamstring injuries and how this thing can go. So the protocol in this situation is, if he's unable to practice in the first practice, it doesn't cost you anything to put him on active PUP, just in case the minor becomes major and he ends up missing more and more time or whatnot before he is able to practice. Maybe, for whatever reason, during the rehab it gets worse or what have you. And he's unable to start the regular season. Well, at least he can go directly from active PUP to reserve PUP. Now, if he does not go on active PUP, before he practices the first time, then he's not eligible for reserve PUP. Also, by going this method, you skirt the whole worrisome about the 53-man roster and designated IR in case this is a serious issue. Now, once he is healthy, once he comes off of, or we hope, once he comes off active PUP in, let's say, about a week or so or a little less, then once he practices, he's not eligible to go back on PUP. In fact, at this point now, starting Friday, once those guys walk out on that field and practice, nobody is eligible to go on PUP. So if a guy goes down tomorrow after the first play with a knee injury, he cannot go on PUP. So keep that in mind, people. This is a precautionary protocol situation with Watt. It doesn't sound like it's serious, although I'm not a doctor. I haven't seen the injury, or all we know is what Mike Tomlin has told us to this point. So just keep your fingers crossed that he only misses 3, 4, 5 days and then gets back out there again. Like I said, there's no reason to rush it with him, and only having one on that list and it being a minor hamstring injury is a very, very good sign. Everybody should be dropping to their knees right now.
You said it well. I want to be really careful with my words when I talk about this Watt injury. Every indication is that it's minor. Now, this team may be, as you said, very cautious with it because they're hamstrings. They can be very tricky. You don't want to rush these guys back and turn it into a long-term thing. So don't be surprised if Watt were to miss a week or week and a half. I mean, I think that's just a prudent thing at his stage and of his career and just how valuable and important he is to the team right now. But, happy that everyone else is healthy. Gerald Hawkins, missing pup. I was hoping and thought that he would be able to avoid active pup. We'll have to see if he's a full participant. That may be a little questionable, but Hawkins will at least be out there doing some stuff tomorrow, and that's a really good sign for him and his progress.
Once again, until I see that official transaction come across the NFL wire tomorrow, I don't think it made it in today. But, it looks like Gerald Hawkins is going to avoid PUP. Mike Tomlin did not mention him today. Shame on the media. Nobody asked about him. Gerald Hawkins. But, I mean, to hear Mike Tomlin talk, about the conditioning test, everybody weighed in, looked fine, did the test fine, everything that goes along with that. So it looks like Tomlin's advice was heeded. It does look like Hawkins will be able to be a go. And look, I mean, if he wasn't ready to go, he'd be on PUP.
Right.
I don't doubt that, especially that injury that he had. So in my opinion, there should be no limited or whatnot with Hawkins. I mean, if he's able to get out there, you should see him out there tomorrow when you get out there to Saint Vincent College and all. So good sign. We thought maybe Hawkins would be the only one that would be on that list, and it looks like he's good to go. And Watt, like you said too, look. We're not going to guarantee anything. This thing could turn into a 7, 8, 9 day thing or something like that. But they'll just be cautious with him and go from there.
Absolutely. The rest of Tomlin's presser I thought was pretty boilerplate. Anything else really stick out to you in terms of what Tomlin said, talking about Boswell, putting pressure on him, but we all know the pressure that already exists on Boswell. I don't think that was something that really had to be said. So from what Tomlin talked about in that same presser, anything else stick out to you?
Yeah, and the one thing we haven't hit, which probably we should have started the show with, actually, is Mike Tomlin did get the extension. Look, I know several people were talking about, speculating how they thought that the Steelers should take a wait and see approach and make Tomlin earn this and all like that. I mean, I get it and all, but if there's any of you out there that thought Mike Tomlin wasn't going to get an extension this offseason, I hate it for you. You just weren't reading the tea leaves very, very good that way. I found there no way that he wouldn't, to be honest with you. Now, I think people are diving into the minute aspect of it, thinking, well, okay, he didn't get a two-year extension, he only got a 1-year extension. Well, later on in the day, the details came out that there's also an option year on it. Now, people are saying, okay, well, who holds the option? Well, obviously, I think the Steelers hold the option. in that situation there. So Mike Tomlin technically right now, after this 1-year extension with the 1-year option, is scheduled to be the coach, or is now under contract officially through 2021, and then there's the option year on top of it. Now 2021 is also how long Ben and Pouncey are currently under contract and all as well too. So I'm not surprised one bit that the extension news while Mike Tomlin was announced today. Maybe a little bit surprised that it wasn't a firm 2-year extension. But I mean, it technically is. I mean, he's not a lame duck coach at this point. But I think what they're telling Tomlin anyway, and I think there's probably not anybody who wouldn't agree with me right now, is look, you got the next 2 years to maybe win a Super Bowl here, or at least get damn near close to it. Because if not, I mean, look, this whole organization, I think, is going to go through a massive change after the 2021 season. Does that mean Tomlin's automatically gone after that? No, but it wouldn't surprise me, as I've said all along, just the same.
It's no surprise to see Tomlin's deal coincide with Ben's deal. Basically, the team saying, let's see what happens in the currently presumed rest of the Roethlisberger era. Now, Ben could play longer than that, of course, but that's where things are at right now. So you go through the Ben era, you come out the other side, and you kind of see what happened, and the team will have the option to make their decision from there. But you're right, 2021 offseason could be a big one with Ben and Pouncey and Tomlin, and who knows what will happen with Colbert. I mean, that could be Colbert's last year. I think he's under contract through 2020 right now, I believe.
Just through the draft right now.
Yeah, just through the draft. So he might take another 1-year deal and go out with Ben as well. I mean, who knows? But that's all stuff down the road. And again, even if you don't like Tomlin, you didn't think he deserved the extension, it really doesn't matter. That's why I'm not too concerned with it. If Tomlin has a terrible next 2 years, they can fire him. It's not like a player where there's a salary cap implication. There's this dead money. It's all not related to the salary cap. So coaches' contracts, to me, are even more just paperless and don't matter even more than what a player's contract is, which only means so much, really means very little in the NFL. So even if you don't like the guy or thought it was a bad move, you shouldn't be surprised by it. I agree. We all kind of expected this to happen, and really it's irrelevant to the eventual decision his team's going to make anyway.
Look, it'll stop the questions about him possibly being a lame duck coach, okay? Mm-hmm. He was already under contract this year and next year, right? I mean, we already agreed that it would have taken it's going to take a massive fall on the face this year. And even then, I couldn't see the team firing Tomlin after this year. So he's essentially was going to get the next 2 years anyway. So you're giving him basically 1 year on top of that just to kind of, a little appeasement, there, and then you're offering the option on the backside, and there's a little pressure there, and I put this on Twitter today, Alex. I mean, look, at this point right now with this team, okay, you got Ben, who's now under contract for 3 more years. Yes, you lost AB, but I mean, look at the offensive line and how many of those guys are under contract. Look at the other offensive weapons that you think are going to be around at least through 2021. Talking about James Conner, talking about Juju Smith-Schuster, talking about James Washington, talking about Deontay Johnson, talking about Benny Snell Jr. I mean, who else? I mean, all they need now is another tight end, right? And then you flip over to the defensive side of football and all the first-round draft picks that they put into this team. You obviously having a lot of excitement this year with Devin Bush. Is he the missing link, in that defense right now this year or the next few years? I mean, obviously you're going to probably need another safety and all, but from a 30,000-foot view, the core of this team is in place where not only should they be expected to compete this year, but the next 2 years on top of it. So the expectation should be with Tomlin and the Steelers that they win a Super Bowl in the next 2 to 3 years. And if Tomlin can't get that done in the next 2 years, maybe he doesn't see that third year. I mean, it's hard to see them changing in Ben's final year, of his contract. But, I mean, I think what you're essentially seeing here at this point here is you guys got 3 years. Let's see, we have enough faith in you. Let's see what you can do. And I think the fan base should expect at least one championship in that time.
Agreed wholeheartedly. That's the expectation. This team isn't here to win just the AFC North or to have Tomlin's streak of non-losing seasons continue. That's not the goal. The goal is to win a Super Bowl. And if that doesn't happen throughout the rest of Roethlisberger's career, it's going to feel like a disappointment because it is a disappointment. That's the expectation. It's going to feel like a bit of a waste of the final best years of Ben's career. So I absolutely agree. And then the final point I want to make on this, because again, it's not something I'm going to think about even starting tomorrow. But I think from an optics standpoint, it is good for potential free agents inside the locker room. Let's say a Javon Hargrave, for example, to know that the head coach has been extended for, 1 to 2 more years for potential free agents, this upcoming offseason, to know that there's that stability there. If you're in a situation where a coach isn't getting that extension, it's a bit of a lame duck, as you mentioned, kind of feel to the coach, then that may make players hesitant to commit. So I know it's a minor thing, probably not the driving force there, but I think there is a benefit of the optics of, okay, the head coach is secure, because we know outside of the Pittsburgh Steelers, there's so much turnover in the NFL with new head coaches every single year, new systems, new schemes, and how tough that is on players and how wary they can be of those situations. So Pittsburgh's unique in that regard to have that consistency that's attractive to a lot of players. Joe Hayden said, I came to Pittsburgh because of Mike Tomlin's stability this franchise had. So I think from an optics level and point of view, there's some benefit to giving Tomlin this extension as well.
And that's a great point, Alex. That's not even one I had even thought of kind of in the last few hours here either. I mean, that is a great point with that optics view on it. And I also think it sends a message to this year's team right as they're all piling into Saint Vincent College is, and don't think that the timing of this thing isn't done because of that either.
For sure.
I mean, Tomlin didn't show up to Saint Vincent today and say, hey, Mike, come on in here. This is all done with the timing aspect, and Tomlin is who knows how long this thing's been worked out. Okay, but to announce it now and it lets this year's team know that you also are committed, despite all the chatter about Mike Tomlin and losing the team and the circus and blah blah blah. You're essentially, by giving him this deal now, you're telling your team, look, we believe in him, and we believe that we have the right guys in here to win as well too. So I'd like to add that on top of your view of the optics and the future free agents on top of it there. So look, all in all, this is the right move. I mean, yep. For people that disagree with Alex and I, sorry, but we're right on this. Plain and simple, this was the right move.
And I do like what Rich Eisen had to say, too. If you didn't see that on his show, I thought he kind of summed up the situation with Tomlin well from an outsider's point of view. With Tomlin, any other points of intrigue in his presser today?
Oh, wow. I haven't really parsed it good enough. I'm sitting there listening to it and trying to tweet about it. And obviously, the Watt news was big there. Well, I
was going to move on to a bunch of cornerback talk that's kind of talking about guys that are Tomlin staying in Pittsburgh, another guy that may be staying in Pittsburgh, at least it appears to be, and you heard about this just shortly before we started the podcast here, Dave. Artie Burns, likely to be carried at least through training camp. That's the expectation.
Yeah, I mean, and we won't know for sure until that third day comes and goes, but Jerry Dulac had a report tonight, and look, nothing. I gotta admit, I don't want to. I don't like to toot my own horn or anything.
You're as humble can be.
Right. I mean, I don't humble bragger, but I mean, I couldn't have been more right today about what all has transpired if I tried. But look, I didn't see Artie Burns being cut before his roster bonus. If they were going to part ways with Artie Burns, that would have happened right after that last OTA practice. And in fact, they shouldn't even, or last minicamp practice. In fact, they probably had their mind made up by the time that mandatory minicamp practice rolled around. So why the hell you want to risk a guy going out there and getting injured?
It's like John Bostic. As soon as the draft was over, he's gone.
Right. To me, that would have been the move to make. And once he made it that far into the offseason. Now, look, is there anything to say that come final cut down day that they need to cut Artie Burns? Because, I mean, is it possible? Yeah. Could they potentially find somebody want to give him a 6th round, 5th round draft pick for Artie Burns? I mean, I doubt it. I mean, but it's not impossible, as I'd like to say here. Look, you're gonna pay him the $800,000 roster bonus here in a few days, and then you're just gonna see how it plays out from there. They don't have a lot, and look, I know, and nobody's been more frustrated with him than I am. Okay, and I know you are very frustrated with him, and not sure that it can be fixed, and I'm not sure he can be fixed either. But they just don't have a lot of experience at this cornerback position. And you go through these names. I even had to just go through the names writing up this article later, tonight about Artie Burns here. I mean, who do you have? I mean, you got Nelson, you got Hilton, you got Joe Hayden, and then, I mean, it's Cameron Sutton, and I mean, let's face it, Brian Allen's really got his work cut out for him to make this team this year. Justin Lane's obviously going to make this squad, but do you really want to rush him along? It doesn't sound like the organization does there. I mean, who do you have behind him there? So me right now, and I've kind of thought this all along, Alex, I will be surprised if Artie Burns is not on this 53-man roster.
But you don't consider him a lock, even though he's gotten this fairly hefty roster bonus.
Look, he sucked.
Well, I'm glad I was sitting down for that.
I mean, there's no two ways around it. The way he played in those first, 6 games last year. Mm-hmm. I mean, you cringe when you turn on that Kansas City tape. You cringe when you turn on that Bengals tape. I mean, it's just.
But you didn't answer my question. Is he? Do you consider him a lock?
No. I mean, I wouldn't bet my house on it. I'd be foolish to. I mean, because there's a whole trade aspect on top of it. But I'm 90% sure he will.
Okay, so you're pretty confident.
Yeah,
that he's gonna make it.
I that level of confidence I don't think has moved all off season. Look, nobody. Hopefully we don't have to see him out there on the field much of anything this year. Mm-hmm. This guy, though, however, can probably play some gunner for you, right? And win some races down the field. He can probably get on a field goal block team and maybe block 1 or 2 for you, race down and chase some punts and kickoffs or what have you. Those kind of things there. But I mean, he is experienced, and who knows? Maybe Terrell Austin maybe somebody can get the switch flipped on him. I doubt it, but I mean, we'll see. I mean, I won't be shocked if he doesn't make the 53. However, I'm still in about the 90% guessing he will crowd.
I get it. But there are a lot of buts and ifs and howevers and everything that you just said. You don't want to see him on the field. Maybe he can do something as a gunner, even though he really hasn't shown a lot of value there at any point in his career. It's been okay, I guess. Some special team penalties that have been very frustrating. It just feels like, what's he going to offer this team? And I don't mean to have a 20-minute conversation on it. Burns is going to have a good camp. He always has good camps. I expect him to look good here at Latrobe, and that's going to give this team confidence, but it's always kind of been false confidence because he plays well in the summer, then you get into the fall, and it all goes to hell in the handbasket.
Yeah, I mean, and he has played well in training. Like I said, maybe Terrell Austin. Look, I hated to pick right from the get-go. There's no reason that kid should have been drafted in the first round, okay? But I mean, he's your child now. I mean, you try to figure out what's wrong with the child, and will they be able to figure out what's wrong with him? Moving forward, we'll see. But
and then they will trade their child if it doesn't work out.
It's possible. Maybe somebody else thinks they could fix him.
Sure. Justin Gilbert got flipped to Pittsburgh, and he was I think a bigger miss than Burns was. To be honest with you,
that's true. I mean, the damn Steelers traded for one of a bigger bust than him.
Yep.
So look, we'll see. But I'm not saying he won't get cut. I'm not surprised he made it this far. I couldn't see them cutting him before this point. And B, I mean, 90. I'm in a 90% club. We'll see what happens.
All right, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't shocked by it. I'm a little more surprised than you, so I think you had a better read on it than I did. But he's here in camp, and that's we'll talk about him as fairly as possible. Like I said, I do think he'll have a good camp because he's always had good camps. I don't expect that to change and be any different this year. But big August for him. Other cornerbacks.
He's had a few decent moments. Now, most of those came, I think, in that in what his second season, about 6 or 7 games in or something like that. I mean,
Yeah.
nothing real, obviously no consistency whatsoever. The grabbing and the defensive pass, the stupid penalty, the taking the helmets off and all. Look, you just got to you got to have the shortest memory in the NFL, especially when you play that position of cornerback. And what you do in practice, you got to be technique wise, which he's not. I mean, he'll show it one week and then lose it the next, and then he's out there swatting flies against a guy like Tyreek Hill. We were thinking, what the heck are you doing? Now, granted, Tyreek Hill's a great player, but some of the whole thing with who was a Boyd last year.
Tyler Boyd cooked him
on that touchdown there. Don't try to do too much. Just play your position the way you're told to play it, and then if you get beat, move on to the next play there. But anyway, enough about Artie Burns.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Let's talk about the other cornerback.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about with two cornerbacks. We'll start with Mike Hilton, though, because that was the big thing with him. He has signed his exclusive rights tender that will allow him to practice for tomorrow. Had he not done that, he would not be eligible to practice because he was not under contract. Technically, he could still receive a long-term extension from the Steelers, but that seems very, very unlikely at this point, so Mike Hilton should play this year under that ERFA tag.
Right, and that's another thing that didn't surprise me. Nobody should have any sort of grudge against Mike Hilton here, okay? If you do, then I hope you held the same grudge against Alejandro Villanueva a couple years ago, all right? The only mechanism, leverage, if you even want to call it that, was him not signing his exclusive rights free agent tender, okay? Which even there, there's not much leverage that comes along with that. Because of it being called exclusive rights, that means the Steelers have exclusive rights. Either he signs that tender and plays for the Steelers, or he sits out and plays for nobody. He's not that good just yet, where he's got that much clout where he can threaten to hold out and not sign his tender. So he went about his business the right way, the same way that Alejandro Villanueva did a couple years ago. I admire that. Okay, yep. I have no problem. You don't want to sign your tender like that, and you went ahead and you explained why, and you explained that in no way are you gonna miss any time. Business as usual. You just hope to parlay this into a bigger deal. In today's NFL, you got to get it when you think you can get it. Okay.
Oh yeah.
But unfortunately, he didn't get it. So, and look, I think he talked today about, it's still a possibility, but you have signed my tender now, and so maybe I'll show him enough during this summer that I could get extension. All right, yeah, do it. Good luck with that. And I have no issue with you thinking that way, and maybe just maybe, he does get one, but. Once again, I'd bet against it. He's an exclusive rights free agent. The Steelers control him very easily next year as a restricted free agent. They can slap a second round restricted tender on him, and all is fine in the world still. And I know, look, don't hate the player, hate the game, and that's the game he's trapped in. As that kind of free agent there. So I'll take my hat off to him for handling his business the right way this offseason, but I just don't think it's going to work out for him this summer.
Respect the process, respect his ask. I get all that. I think Hilton's going to have a really good year, but he brought a strongly worded letter to a gunfight. I mean, he just didn't have leverage here, so that's all he could do was just ask, and he really didn't have much of a recourse. But I'm glad he's in camp, and I think he'll have a good year, and I think that will put him in better position to have some leverage. Obviously, it won't be a lot because he'll still be controlled under the RFA tender for next year, but if he has a good year, which I think he will, and be that starting slot corner, being healthy is such a huge component. He was playing through that elbow injury last year. I think Hilton could receive that this time next year, potentially.
And look, if that elbow injury affected him that much, and he does have a nice rebound season. And look, last year's season wasn't awful, but
it got progressively worse.
It wasn't. The touchdown in the Raiders, boy, that's a difference of the ball game right there. You know?
But if you look at before the injury, the first 3 weeks he played like Mike Hill. That Cleveland game, week 1, he played excellent.
Right.
And that's why I say the elbow injury, I think, really truly did impact him, not just an excuse, because he was playing well before he got hurt.
All right, let me look at this. 16 games in a schedule still in the NFL. Yeah, just 16 games still. I'm kidding you there, but look, I mean,
they snark in season 10, not going away.
Yeah, look, he has played well. We saw that first season there. Now, did they kind of catch up with him a little bit on his timing, on the blitzes or whatnot? Yeah, probably a little bit. And let's not forget that those sacks came in, against Houston. Okay, against a very, very lame quarterback situation there a couple years ago. There, the whole secondary I thought Joe Hayden put it best when he was talking to the media today. We got to catch we something to the effect that the balls that hit us in the face, we can't drop. Phrasing.
Simple as that. Yeah.
Phrasing.
Let's move past that. Simple as that. Yeah, they drop 10 to 13, depending on how you count it. Picks last year. That's a world of difference.
We had a regular reader, and I can't somewhere in one of these recent posts that we had put something to the effect, I can't believe they dropped 10. Did you see that? One of them said, I didn't. Said, I can't believe someone needs to show me that they dropped 10 or 11 interceptions last year.
We have the clip.
Has he been in a coma? I mean, didn't you have all that clips up there and and all like that? It amazed me. Yeah, I mean, they dropped that many interceptions that were very interceptable balls there. Hilton, Hayden, Davis. I mean, you name it, and it wasn't just
the whole secondary.
Yeah, the whole second, and a couple of I think a linebackers had a couple.
Watt had one, but he just flat out dropped.
So that's a big thing. Look, I guess getting back to Hilton here, and he's a bulldog against the run too. He'll help you out in situations like that. So if he can stay healthy and have the type of season again that showed a couple years ago, then he'll get that second round tenure, and then we'll move on for there. Will he ever get a big deal? He's going to need a hell of a season in 2019, I think, to parlay it into a long-term extension.
Sure, but I think he's in the right direction. I think he'll have at least better leverage and a better case to make next year, assuming all goes well this year. With the last cornerback on our list here, Joe Hayden does not have an extension yet, but did talk to the media today and said that his camp is in communication with the Steelers front office, and I would be very, very surprised if a extension does not get done here in a couple weeks. I'm pretty sure they're going to get something worked out.
Yeah, that's been my thought all off season here with him. And I wrote about this early on in the process too. You can make good arguments for not. And, assuming he don't want to meet you at the right price and then kind of parlay, but you would have to use a franchise tag on him next year. I mean, you could do that, but do you really want to go that route? To me, it speaks more volumes to get him done now and potentially maybe at I'm guesstimating, what I write, 12, 13, $14 million season price. I mean, are you going to pay him much lower than that? I mean, he's averaged, he's making $10 million this year. I mean, where do you want to tell him he ranks on the list?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I haven't thought as much about the particulars, and that gets a little messier than the overall idea of just will it get done, which again I strongly believe it will, but I think it'll come in somewhere between, let's call it 11 to 13 is my guesstimate.
Somewhere in there, and to hear him talk, it's going to get done. I mean, when you got both sides talking that they like each other and they want to do business with each other, yeah, that business usually happens that way. And that usually, that's the case in the drug world too. I'll just let you know.
Okay, let's disassociate Hayden from that.
But yeah, I mean, I don't. The only way it doesn't happen is, God forbid, he suffers a serious injury here in the next couple weeks. That to me, that's the only way that it doesn't happen at this point. Look, you can get it done, and I've laid this out in recent posts, and we talked about it as well, too, I think, on the podcast, Alex. You can get it done, and his cap number this year not move an inch, or you can get it done this year and make his cap number go down a couple $1 million is all how you want to go about doing it. If you want to ease the burden in future years, then don't move his cap number at all this year. Personally, that's the way I would do it. Okay. Because I think, Cam Hayward restructure's coming, folks. I mean, it's coming. They showed up at camp today with just a little less than $1 million in salary cap space, and even if they cleared up a couple million, maybe with a Hayden extension, you're still going to need, I think, a little bit more there. So Hayward restructure is probably on the way here. A Hayward restructure is probably on the way here soon. A Hayden contract extension. When is it going to happen? I don't know. I mean, probably odds are better that would happen maybe after the third preseason game, right? Get Joe Hayden through those first three all training camp and the first three preseason games. You're not going to play him in the fourth one anyway. Get the deal done after that.
Yep, that makes as much sense as anything. Yeah, bottom line is the Steelers want Hayden, longer term. Hayden wants to be here longer term, and regardless of what number you want to put to it, because that gets a little bit more debatable, Hayden's going to be here in 2020. I can almost guarantee you with that.
And look, this guy might not have a career. I mean, he's obviously a little bit older now. Might not have a career year, but it's hard not to get excited about that guy, from the words that come out of his mouth to the way he carries himself on and off the field. Smart guy, really put in a lot of good, visible work, training work. Not that he wasn't before, but we just have now with the age of the internet, have a lot more visual evidence of the kind of stuff that he's doing there. If he catches a few of the balls that come his way and hit him in the face, I mean, this could be a guy that, I don't think you should expect anything more than 3 to 4 interceptions out of him, but I mean, he still has that kind of season in him, and oh boy, do the Steelers need it.
Amen to that, yeah. And as you said earlier, Dave, with how young and inexperienced the secondary is, to have that leader, that veteran guy like Hayden, how old is the next oldest member of the Steelers secondary behind Hayden?
Wow, that's a great question.
Dangerfield is like 26, maybe? I can look that up.
27? It might be Dangerfield. That's a great question.
Yeah, but the rest of the cornerbacks are 24 or 25. I mean, Nelson might be 25, and Hilton, and you got Artie Burns, who's still young, 23, 24. I mean, it is a young group. Whether you go safeties with Sean Davis, who's I think 25, and Edmonds, who's
Dangerfield, 28. Good call.
28. Okay, yeah, but I mean, you get the point. Is that, and then rattle off the rest of the ones. I mean, Davis is what, 25? Are you looking at the list right now?
You're going way down. You get way down the list here.
I mean, I can pull up. I do have a list up.
Hayden 30. Where is it here? Didn't bring my glasses in here tonight.
You want me to read it off?
Yeah, I'm blind as a bat, man. Steven Nelson 26 here. Herb Waters is actually 26 as well too. Did you know that?
I didn't know that, but he's bounced around.
Who else do we have?
I mean, Brian Allen, 25. Artie Burns is 24. Hilton, 25. Cam Sutton, 24. At safety, again, I mean, talking young guys. Davis is 25, I'm pretty sure, and Edmonds is young. Yeah, Davis 25, Edmonds 22, Dangerfield's the older guy at 28, Marcus Allen 22. I mean, you get the point. Is that it is a young. I mean, there's some experience there, but again, the broader idea is that Hayden has that experience, that veteran presence, a leader in that secondary. And while you're not going to give a guy an extension based off of that alone, it's certainly a part of what makes Joe Hayden an effective player and a guy that you want to keep longer term.
Yeah, love Justin Lane all you want and have as much optimism as you want. He hasn't played a single down in the NFL yet. So,
and what better guy to learn from than Joe Hayden?
Absolutely.
I mean, a guy that didn't run great coming out, and can learn so much from him.
Absolutely. So get it done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that my one question would be, how long would the extension be? 2 years, 1 year?
2 years would be. Obviously, you could do it 3. I mean,
sure.
You could do it as long as you want, really. I mean,
well, yeah, but realistically, is what I'm asking.
Realistically, I think you give him a 2-year extension. On top of it, you stretch that signing bonus out this year, and then the 2 years on top of it there. I think that's about right, because let's face it. He's already 30. I mean, what's the Steelers aren't going to keep him too much terribly longer. I mean, you would hope to you would sign him to that 2-year extension, hoping that he gets all 3 years in.
Okay, got it. Yeah, I knew it wouldn't be longer than 2. I was just wondering 1 or 2, but I think 2 does make the most amount of sense financially, and his incentive to do it and all that good stuff. Anything else from Thursday, Dave, that stuck out to you? An interview or just any sort of notes before we kind of preview what's going to happen later today at Latrobe?
Oh wow! I mean, I thought Pouncey, who was I think the first guy to show up, talking about we didn't give you guys anything to write about this off season here. I thought that kind of spoke volumes, Ramon Foster and look, I get the feeling as an outsider, and this is just guesstimation on my part there. It really does look like there's been an addition by subtraction as far as off the field stuff goes. I'm not even going to pretend to try to roll this thing up into, well, it's a good thing they lost Antonio Brown offensively, kind of thing. However, I do want to hit on that topic here in a little bit if you'll let me. But they just seem more team-like. They seem a lot more relieved. It doesn't seem to be as any attitudes or anything. However, my dream got crushed today, Alex.
Oh, all right. Here's the old man, Dave.
All right. Yins, get off my lawn.
I'm going to fight you on this, by the way.
I know you are.
Right.
I know.
Go ahead.
You better bring more than a strongly worded letter.
I know you're bringing a gun. It's not your first time around weaponry, so yeah, I'm going
yeah,
to.
and the gun safe is unlocked. So, look, why? Why does Eli Rogers have to drive a big semi-truck? Or not, he wasn't driving, he was hanging off the side of it, I guess. But why? What? Him of all people. If I would have gave you 10 guesses, Alex, during Tuesday's show as to the 10 players most likely to be tabbed as making the grandest entrance at the Steelers 2019 training camp, would you have picked Eli Rogers at all?
I don't know. I probably wouldn't have picked him, but I don't know who I would have picked. It wouldn't have been David DeCastro. I mean, I don't know what guys I would have thought would have had that kind of entrance.
All right. Like I said, now if that's, I always kid people, if I have to leave the house and they say something, well, how was that or whatnot, I say, look, if that's the worst thing that happens to me all day, I'll be fine. That kind of thing. If Eli's entrance is the worst thing that we're talking about coming out of Thursday, glory, hallelujah, right? But
yeah, I liked it. But go ahead.
But it's just why look, it's Eli Rogers too, and I know he's in my latest 53-man roster prediction. It's going to be hard for me not to have him in any of my 53 roster predictions going forward. But let's admit it here, we'd both be foolish to bet any sizable amount of money on Eli making the 53. Okay, So especially if you're not a player that's slam dunk making the 53, why in the hell are you going to do something like that?
Sure. Point taken. A bubble player showing up like that is unexpected. But I think it fits Eli Rogers well because, first of all, he has worn that construction hat. He wears it all the time.
I get it. I don't have a problem with that. Show up with the hat on.
I think that embodies kind of who he is. I mean, this is a guy that, all these guys have to work to make it to the NFL. Nothing's given. I understand that, but he has had to work even harder every step of the way from being a light recruit, and he was going to go to Miami and then switch to Louisville to go with Teddy Bridgewater.
So every undrafted free agent should show up in a semi-truck then.
Hey, if they can afford it, that might be a different question. If they can afford their $1,000 signing bonus the Steelers like to give those guys. But I'm just saying is that, he's come so far with the foot injury he suffered as a rookie to battle back from that, the ACL last year, just being an undrafted guy in general in a receiver group. I can appreciate the mentality that he has. And so I got a lot of respect for Eli and the journey he's done and how he's battled back and seemed to come back stronger every step of the way. And I'm the guy that doesn't have him on my 52-man roster prediction as we sit here today. So it's funny how we're doing our roles.
Okay, what's the message there? I'm entertained.
That he's here to work. That he's here to put in work.
How about just showing up and working?
Oh, how old do you sound? Are you going to remember this 3 days from now? Are you going to be talking about this, thinking about this at all?
No.
No, yeah. So who cares? I mean, that's just, it's fine. It lasted 10 seconds. You weren't there.
I've already said if that's the worst thing that we're talking about, I'll be just fine.
So you're purposely getting mad to get mad over.
Well, something. I mean, to me, it's just not neat, especially coming off of what we just came off of. Okay, I thought and look, I know people were worried about Juju jumping out of an airplane today. That wasn't going to happen. I think Juju was just trolling a little bit there. In fact, I don't think anybody he slipped in through the back door, I think, today, and I think Ben did as well too there. So just coming off of what this team was coming off of, and coming off of what Vince Williams had said the other day, and all like that, I was crushed, man, when I saw that. I was pretty crushed when I saw the video of that semi truck. And who the hell was driving that thing anyway? I hope they pay. Somebody gonna have to pay Saint Vincent College for that grass getting torn up, I think.
Good point. I saw all those nice cars next to that semi, and I was like, if I got my car there, I'm a little nervous. You're not crushed by it. Again, I point taken, but you're not going to remember this 48 hours from now. So,
but we will easily remember a year from now who made the grand entrance, right?
I don't know how many grand entrances can you remember that wasn't AB and like Harrison and Kiesel. I'm sure somebody else did it, and we've forgotten about that.
Yeah, we'll see.
All right, you're fine. But I appreciate Eli Rogers. So yeah, I had him off to talk about that briefly and related to football. I had him off my 53. You had him on it. Just briefly, why did you put Eli as your, assuming the 6th receiver, 5th receiver, depending on how you framed it with Switzer on your roster prediction?
Because I need to say, it's the incumbent methodology.
Okay.
I have no good reason not to have him on there. How's that? I'm not going to look. I studied as much Deontay Spencer as I can with available CFL games. I mean, I mostly looked at his return aspect because there's no two ways around it. He's going to have to return kicks and punts if Deontay Spencer makes this team. And I don't think you're going to disagree with me there. The other kid, the Johnny Holton kid, is he this year's Darius Hayward-Bay? Is he that guy with that speed that can stretch the field vertically for you? Something that really you don't have on your roster, right? I mean, who's the burner? I mean, James Washington, we expect him to be able to get over the top this year, but I mean, he's not the gazelle. That Martavis Bryant was. Johnny Holton can scoot on the out. He can run. He only runs 2 routes, but he runs them. Yep. And he can play some special teams for you on top of it there. I want to see. I don't think enough respect's maybe being given to either Tavon Jones and Griffey. Now, realistically, they are way.
Who?
Griffey or
just call him Tavon Jones?
What I call him?
I think you said Tavon. It's Tevin. You're not respecting him.
Tevin. Jones and Griffey. One of those two, I think, going to land on the practice squad. Heck, it might even be both of them again. Okay, and remember, this is the second. And somehow we get in this conversation this time every year. Is this the best off-season wide receiver group the Steelers have ever had? No, I don't want to get into that again. But look, I mean, every guy that they're going to have, virtually every guy I think that they're going to have on this preseason roster has some form of or professional football experience already, whether it be exhibition or CFL, right?
Yeah, besides Deontay Johnson. Obviously.
Oh, besides Deontay Johnson, obviously.
Yeah.
Right.
But there are no undrafted rookie free agents on this roster.
And, right. We've had to talk several times already about Rogers, Switzer, either or, both kind of thing there. So, look, once I get into a couple of these, A, your reports from training camp, and B, a game or two of preseason, I'll be able to make a better judge. But I just didn't want to throw one of those guys in there just because. I went with the incumbent when it went with Rogers and Switzer. I'll not be, but I did write in my 53. I will not be shocked at all if one of those two do not make it.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I think Rogers will play well, and you kind of know what you have in Eli Rogers at this point. I went with Switzer and then Johnny Holden as my sixth receiver, which I know was kind of a little bit of the projection, taking a leap of faith there. But as you said, I think that he offers something different than a lot of these other receivers, whether that's Deontay Johnson, Ryan Switzer, Eli Rogers, Deontay Spencer. They're all kind of cut from a similar cloth. And I think Holden offers kind of the DHB role of coverage guy on special teams and being that big vertical threat at receiver. Not that he's going to play a lot, but you could use him in some situations like that. So that's kind of why I went with that. And then Switzer, I just expect him to be the starting kick returner and punt returner. If I think that changes, then that may change his spot in Eli Rogers' situation. But if Switzer has both those things locked down, you have your receivers, they play well. Washington and Deontay Johnson, they're coming along nicely. Then where does Eli Rogers fit and all that? And that's where I struggled with, and that's why I left him off my initial roster production. But again, that could obviously change, and Rogers has very much a puncher's chance of making this team.
Man, I'm going to catch hell for saying this, especially if he hears me say it. I'm sure he'd come after me on Twitter because he's pretty outspoken sometimes. I think Switzer's a little bit overrated, man. I mean,
in what sense?
Just an all-around player. I think you rate him higher than I do. And granted,
Okay, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, again, I just see his value being that kick and punt returner, that he can wear both hats, and that's not something everybody can do, and that's where his value, I think, is going to really be at. If he can't be both of those things in his roster spot, is seriously in jeopardy, seriously. But if he can do both of those things, I think he's going to make it.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying, and I think Eli Rogers is a better receiver than Ryan Switzer. I assume you would agree.
I think Eli Rogers offers you more on a every down basis out of the slot than Ryan Switzer does. Now there's something on that. Give me that 3 and 7 yard out by Ryan Switzer every time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if I need 3 yards, I'm putting him in the slot and I'm running him on that quick, that quick out route there. And yeah, he made some catches down the field last year, later on in the season, but that we both know that's not his game.
Not necessarily. I mean, yes and no. I think that is going to be important.
He didn't do it. I mean, he did it some in college, but not to the degree that you would like to see. And he obviously hasn't done it much past 7 yards since being in the NFL,
Mm-hmm.
although he hasn't had a lot of opportunity. I don't like seeing him line up in the backfield either. I'm done with that. But I mean, I get it. He's a shifty little dude. I mean, he really is. But I think he's a bit overrated as a kick and punt returner. And like I said, outside of needing that 3 yards on that slot, out route, I could take him or leave him, I think.
Point taken. I'm just excited to see him go through his first camp as a Steeler, because I think the more that he got to play last year, jumping on that moving train, getting traded literally a week before the season started, that's a really tough transition. All he went through personally, and just your life shifting as a 24-year-old, you're bouncing around from Dallas to Oakland to Pittsburgh. It's a lot to take in, I'm sure. And by the end of the year, I thought he did get involved more as a receiver and made some plays there. So I just want to see a more body of work from him and have that opportunity, as you said, to be an actual bona fide receiver like he was in North Carolina, and see where he comes in there. But for Eli Rogers, obviously he missed all of camp last year, so it's just nice to have both of those guys in Latrobe, healthy, ready to work on day one.
And both of them are pretty slot-specific players, but Rogers probably gives you a little bit more if you had to put him in, say, the X or something like that. I mean, it's obviously you're not going to make. I don't think you would ever want to make a habit out of, but you're not going to. I just don't see Switzer being able to play anywhere other than place where he can get a free release,
I think he did play some of the X last year, a couple snaps at least, but they're both slot guys,
right,
generally speaking.
Right, and we all know who the number one slot guy is, right?
Ideally, Juju, yeah, as long as James Washington plays well and can keep Juju in the slot as much as possible, that's the guy that you want.
Right, and speaking of that, that's kind of Cynthia Freeland from the sports analytics from NFL Network there. I think she gets a bad. I don't know. You think people give her a bad rap?
I don't follow her work too closely aside from the stuff that you've written, but I think the things I've seen are quality from her. I think she does a good job being able to frame it.
Yeah, I really think her analytics are off. Obviously, she's not an X and O's person, but I mean, she knows enough about what to ask her machine to put out, in that aspect there. And really, all of her models, like she said the other day, suggest that, even with AB gone, the amount of snaps that Juju is expected to play in the slot, again, and we've talked about this time in, time out, is going to present some tasty match. You're not going to be able to give the type of attention to Juju that you want to give every down as when he's in the slot, I don't think. So because of that, there's going to be some tasty matchups for Juju, and he's going to have the yards after the catch. And I'm with her. Look, I still think there's going to be maybe a little decrease in catches and receiving yardage for Juju, just because I'm hoping that the Steelers don't have to drive as long of fields and have to throw 600 and whatever times this year on top of it. But the further we get away from this Antonio Brown trade, I think Juju should be able to be just fine. The biggest question comes, and it's one of the X factors we talked about all year. How much can Dante Moncrief assume right off the bat? How quickly can Deontay Johnson overtake maybe a guy like Dante Moncrief? And then what's James Washington going to give you at the Z position because you want to talk about a guy that's going to have plenty of one-on-one against average and below average cornerbacks on the outside. It's James Washington. If he doesn't win, then you're going to have to quickly find someone who can.
In regards to Juju, I think it's macro versus micro. On the macro level, the big picture for the season, he's going to have a very Juju type year. He'll catch, like I said before, 100 balls for 1,300, 1,400 yards, and maybe he can hit 10 touchdowns. I think that's possible this year. It's the micro situations of specific game plan, specific defense that can travel their cornerback, because not every team can travel their top cornerback, and that's going to be a benefit for Juju. But some teams can, and that will potentially hurt Juju in that moment. Your teams that really game plan and scheme him away, or a third down, or as we talked about before, just those in-game situations where all the attention goes to Juju, where the other guys have to step up. But big picture, yeah, I agree. I mean, Juju's going to have the same year, better year than he's had last year.
Yeah, if your defense is providing those shorter fields, and the offense isn't having to go 75 yards, 76 yards every drive, that's going to make a big difference too. The biggest area, that we keep saying that they're going to miss Antonio Brown is the what I like to call super touchdowns. The 20-yard or more touchdowns. Those are going to be tough to replace because AB learned how to play that. Not only could AB could win at all three levels of the field. Okay. And every route, really. I mean, everything from the slant to the post to the corner to the go. I mean, and he was good at getting himself lost after plays broke down. That's one area where James Washington is going to have to really come on real quick too. All these guys are going to have to learn the level scramble and bail Ben out, and then not only that, make plays after the catch in those situations to get what I like to call the super touchdowns in those situations, because they are going to miss what AB really did, but between the 20s, I think more so than inside the 20s.
Yep, I totally agree. It's going to be about that collective effort, and that collective effort begins today for Friday. So, Dave, to kind of transition and preview into what we're going to see today, what I'm going to see heading up to training camp. And I do want to caution, it's day one. They're still going to be in shorts and shells. Pads don't come on until Sunday, the third day of practice. So you're only going to learn so much. And you want to be careful. I'm just speaking generally here because I know I'll get so many questions about what happened on day one of camp. You want to be careful making any sort of conclusions right away. There won't be any conclusions made today. You want to see maturation and progress, and guys that have bad days, do they have good days? Guys that have good days, can they continue to have good days? So this is one piece of a very much bigger puzzle. But day one, what are your initial thoughts or things that you want to hear about and learn about?
Do they run any dime? Tell me a little. I'll be asking you. Tell me a little bit about Marcus Allen. day one. Tell me who's running opposite, and we expect it to be Chicolo, I guess. Tell me who's running opposite Bud Dupree. Tell me about that right tackle spot. Who's getting some reps? Who's getting the first team reps there? Probably should be Filer, probably out of the box there. Boy, Lord, tell me about Devin Bush. Is that speed visible still in shorts and no pads? Kind of situation. Gee, what else would I ask you about?
I mean, I agree. I think what I do for the first 2 days specifically is just learn where guys are lining up at, where are guys playing, just to get that baseline feel, so that when things change, and they will change, that things have, the guys have moved around, and then once the pads come on, you're not worried about where a guy's lining up. You're just watching and evaluating their play. So I think that's my mindset for the first 2 days, and especially the first day. You just get a feel for kind of where everybody's at, and just to give you that initial idea of where guys are playing.
All right. What else? I mean, you gonna anything else major gonna have your eyeballs on out there?
I mean, you're trying to watch everything. Isaiah Buggs, are they going to move him up and down the line? A day and day, of course, a big year for him. Sutton Smith, we're going to see Sutton Smith a fullback. I mean, the rotation at inside linebacker, the backup safety play, some of the sleeper guys like Locke and Askew Henry and Cameron Kelly to check out. The offensive line's always a big thing, too. I'm always curious about how the lines are going to work. And I kind of have a depth chart right now, if I could go through it kind of briefly, and you tell me if this sounds right to you or not, Dave, and I'll go through it team by team. For the first team, pretty easy, I think, but I expect them to roll out as Villanueva, Foster, Pouncey, DeCastro, and Filer. Does that sound good?
Yeah, that sounds right to start, and obviously you would expect Okorafor to challenge Filer at some point.
Yeah. I mean, they're of course going to battle. It's an open competition, but I think Filer's going to take the first team rep and then maybe even the bulk of the reps on Friday. Second team, this is what I have: Hawkins at left tackle, Finney at left guard, Hassenauer at center, Fred Johnson at right guard, and Okorafor at right tackle. That's my projection. Don't know. We'll find out. That's my projection.
Did you have Morris in there?
I have him third team. I think Matthew wrote that Hassenauer actually was getting second team reps. So I know that I was going to go Morris too, then I remembered that. We'll see. I mean, you could put Finney at center too, but I'm going to stick my neck out and put Hassenauer second team center.
Boy, has there been a less talked about guy maybe than Morris?
Yeah.
Really? I was thinking about that yesterday when I was scanning back down the roster again. I mean, this guy that stuck all last season, right?
One of those second-year guys, sophomore guys, that can make that jump.
And you know what? I should have put him in there too, but I didn't. But I was only trying to talk about people that were on the 53 last year. Also, I mean,
sure.
I would have included on him. But yeah, I mean, he was a guy that. I mean, they kept him for him and Hooks, are two guys. I don't want to quickly run down the rabbit hole here, but Morris is a guy I look forward to really watching, or in this first preseason game. Levon Hooks is a guy that I'm probably higher than I should be on him, but he made some nice plays last year during the preseason there. And Ola Adeniyi, if that guy can pick up where he left off last year during the preseason, look out, for him. But look, I mean, we could draw up. Okay, who's your third team then?
Just to run through it quickly. Derwin Gray at left tackle, Garrett Brumfield left guard, Patrick Morris at center, Damian Prince at right guard, and then Zach Banner at right tackle.
Okay.
I struggle a little bit with Gray and Prince because I know Gray's been playing guard, and I think they're going to move Gray around, but I'm kind of putting Gray in his natural spot to open things up at left tackle.
What's Fred Johnson doing? Going to get people water?
No, he's second team right guard.
Oh, you had him second team right guard. I missed that. Okay. I don't know, maybe a little bit too high on him. Look, I finally got around to watching a good selection of his tape, and A, he's a big boy. B, he's a big boy that can play inside the phone booth there. He's not. He kind of reminds you of Foster, just that big-bodied guy. I mean, he's not the quickest of jackrabbits when he pulls or whatnot, but he's effective. I
think he's a little more athletic than Foster. I know I probably have to remember back to Foster's rookie year, which I don't remember clearly.
Yeah.
But yeah, similar types.
I mean, he can if he gets his paws on you at the second level, on some of those bubble plays. You're probably not going to get off of him. He's going to be interesting to watch. I mean, I obviously didn't put him on my 53. I'm not sure if you did or not.
I did. My eighth guy.
Okay, I had him on the practice squad. I mean, right as I sit right here right now, I'll be disappointed if he's not at least practice squad. And now, granted, I didn't sit there and watch 3 full games of his, I don't think, but I watched, I don't know, 40, 50 snaps of his, and I came away impressed with what he could do.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of the offensive line, because I'll get off of this because I know this is just conjecture about how the lines are going to go, but new offensive line coach Sean Surratt working with Adrian Clem. Not that we're going to learn a whole lot day one, but it's Surratt's show now. It's real, and that'll be fun to watch to see any differences with how he conducts a practice versus how Munchak conducted a practice.
Yeah, I'm not going to pretend that might lose a Mike Munchak. I'd much rather have him in Pittsburgh than not in Pittsburgh. But, I mean, with the experience that line has right now in that room, and as long as Sean Surratt's been around Munchak, I didn't lose a wink of the 3 hours of sleep that I get.
Yeah, I'm with you. I had a little longer slumber, but yeah, I think they're gonna be fine with that group. Anything else you're looking at here for day one?
No. I'm intently gonna be, as I usually do. I'll be asking the questions that I think the people want to hear, and obviously trying to read your reports after the fact, and trying to learn as much as I can as someone not being there. And that's why, boy, I sure would hate to see them lose any of these preseason games unless they were going to start, televising practices and scrimmages, which I don't think they're going to do any time in the near future there. Just look forward to you being the eyes and ears of this thing in these first couple weeks here.
And how about the tight end group really quickly? Just watching Grimble and Gentry and Christian Scotland Williamson. I mean, talk about a group that's under the microscope. It's got to be that unit.
I mean, every year, aren't we talking about? I mean, it's been like 17 years now. We talked about Grimble, right? Gonna be the camp phenom.
Him and when he backed up Eric Green in the 90s. Remember that?
Yeah. I mean, doesn't it kind of feel that way?
It does. It really does. Yeah.
I mean, and is it the same? Aren't you kind of seeing the same old guys on the Twitter machine saying, this is going to be the camp phenom guy here and all. Look, I don't hate the guy. I mean, and there was that one game. Was it last year against the Colts or was it the year before? During the
I think the year before.
Where it looked like he turned the corner in the preseason. As a blocker there. But I've already talked to you about what a mess the 22 personnel grouping was last year. They like him. I mean, you don't stick around and get that tender and all like that if they don't like you, and it's hard. They're already struggling for a number 3 tight end. Yeah, so I mean, I think at worst he can be your number 3 tight end. So I think he's as safe can be.
Yeah, I think he's safe. I think he's just got to prove that he's earned the confidence to be that number 2. I mean, there's talent. There's been improvement, incremental but improvement. Now it's about consistency with him. And then Gentry is a wild card. I mean, rookie tight ends, it's a tough transition. Underclassman, played quarterback in high school. I mean, there's a lot of things working against him, but, we'll see how he looks.
Yeah, we'll definitely see there.
All right, Dave, before we close out the show, do you have any reader emails coming in right before the first day of camp?
Yeah, we do actually have a few of them here, Alex. I'm surprised. Let's see here. Let's hit some people that we haven't heard from in a while here. Michael Givens writes in, after learning about the Alumni Hall of Fame class that would go in addition to the regular ballot guys, could we potentially see the Hall of Fame induction either or all of Troy Polamalu? I think he's eligible. Alan Faneca and Donnie Shell. Also, if such would be the case, I'll be looking forward to an extra Steelers preseason game in 2020. Micah, I'm not sure if you missed kind of one of the previous podcast shows here where we talked about how they were going to be expanding possibly the 2020 class to, what did it say, 20? 20 in total, and obviously it would still, it would be quite a few extra, earlier senior committee guys and contributors and all like that. Look, if Alan Faneca, there should be a good chance that both Alan Faneca and Troy Polamalu both get in this go around. Definitely Polamalu's got to be a first ballot guy, right?
Oh yeah, 100%. I'll be absolutely floored if he's not. The other guys are toss up, but Troy's getting it,
I
no
mean,
doubt.
and I don't see at this point now. I mean, after Kevin Mawai got in last year, I mean, this is Faneca's year. He's got to get in, I think. And if you want to talk about, everybody knows how I feel about Donnie Shell. Not only Donnie Shell, I mean, as a veterans senior guy, if you expand that number, he should be in that for sure. And then the great Bill Nunn, the late Bill Nunn. I mean, how in the heck is that? I mean, if you're going to put Gil Brandt in, which you should. I mean, Gil Brandt played a big role in help building them Cowboys teams. Well, who's the team to beat the Cowboys during the 70s? The Steelers. And who helped orchestrate all that? Scout Bill Nunn. So I guess the short answer, Mike, is yeah. I mean, if things go perfectly and they expand that thing and we get Polamalu and Faneca and Shell and Bill Nunn in there. You might be a little bit asking too much to get all those guys in there, but if you did, yeah, maybe the Steelers would be in the Hall of Fame game that year.
It'd be awesome. You'll get no argument from me. I think all those guys you mentioned deserve to be in. Jack Butler was inducted a couple of years ago, and he was a great cornerback, but also inducted largely because of what he did for Blesto and the scouting service at large. So I think Bill Nunn absolutely deserves to get in. All I know, though, is for 2020, Troy's getting in. Everybody else is anybody's guess.
Jack Butler came out of the blue a little bit, didn't it? I mean, I can't remember there being a lot of buzz right before. I mean, obviously he had to make the semifinalist list and yada yada and all, but I don't remember there being a lot of buzz ahead of that. I mean, deservingly he's in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. It wasn't a lot of buzz until he got on the ballot and got inducted.
But yeah, how great would that be if we're talking a year from now about that?
Mm-hmm. Be awesome.
Dustin Bertrand writes in podcast question on Tomlin's extension. Hi guys, I had a question regarding the extension given to Mike Tomlin. Why'd they do it? Why'd they do it? Because he's a damn good coach. He deserves the extension, and for all the reasons we gave you earlier in the show was the reason to do it. And like it or not, Dustin, it was the right decision. You guys have reportedly sung the praises of Tom and defended him as being a good coach. I politely disagree, as I believe other coaches could have gotten more wins out of the talent on the roster. To prove that I'm not as stubborn as my wife says I am, I give you my best argument on why I should convert to Tomlinisms. If you could grade Tomlin on the following coaching attributes. 1, X's and O's, specifically on defense with the emphasis on the secondary. B-. He knows his X's and O's on the defensive side of football.
Yeah, I mean, that's how he was brought up. He was a secondary coach and a defensive coordinator. I mean, obviously in the results, it hasn't always been there. So, I mean, how do you balance that? So I think a B is fine.
I mean, if you want to, I mean, you're asking, Dustin, you're asking that question wanting us to be results biased here. I mean, you just asked X's and O's specifically on defense. He knows his stuff, okay? I mean, to me, that sounds like a setup question because the secondary hasn't been great.
Yeah, I just think these are all tough answers to give because they're kind of arbitrary and they're so, we're not in that day-to-day environment that's really tough to try to give those specific grades. I mean, I get why you're asking the question, but I think it's hard for me to come up with the difference between a B and a B-. Like, I don't know.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Number 2, game management, such as controlling the clock, game time adjustments, and replay challenge. Obviously, he hasn't been great in that aspect of it. But how many games can we circle and say that's why they lost the game?
Yeah, I mean, you're true.
Not that that's the end all do all. I'm not excusing it because Lord knows I've gotten mad about it and written about time in, time out. Things like that. Obviously, the replays. Sometimes you think, my God, just call my house. I'll let you know. Whether or not to challenge that thing. Obviously, that's probably one of the weakest aspects of Tomlin.
Yeah, because he's a gut guy. He makes decisions off of gut, so you're going to get inconsistency, and that's why you get some of those. So yeah, it's like a C- or something for game management, I guess.
Pre-game player prep, having your team ready to go. How in the hell, we're not in the locker room. I mean, how can anybody judge that's not in that locker room?
I guess the idea is, does this team get off to a fast start? And I know the answer most people would say is no. I think that's the angle here.
Pre-game player prep, having your team ready to go, and player discipline he's added on to there.
I think he's done a good job with player discipline. I know there are going to be criticisms, and I think anytime a coach is here for 13 years, there's going to be criticisms about how you handle those situations. But he's never lost a locker room in 13 years, and there aren't many coaches that can say that. A couple, but not many. And I think that speaks volumes about how much they respect Mike Tomlin. Not just like him, but respect him.
And I guess at the end here, he's having a little fun. He says, use of the word obviously and other such cliches. Look, he's a wordsmith. I mean, I think it's amusing sometimes with some of the things that he says, you know. And a lot of them don't seem as rehearsed as I think most people think. I think a lot of times he'll surprise you right off the cuff, with a few things that he says. And he ends. He says, "I don't want to paint with a broad brush, but I give Tomlin mediocre grades on everything but the cliches. Convince me that I'm wrong." I don't know how we're supposed to convince you on those specific 4 things that you pointed out, Dustin. Look, this is a guy that's got since 2007, the second or third best winning percentage in the NFL. Obviously, there's you and obviously, they've lost some playoff games that they should have won. Okay, the team should have went further a couple years ago. I mean, losing to Jacksonville in the first round. I mean, that was really, really a disappointing year. So, not winning some playoff games that he should have won. I mean, yeah, he loses out on the West Coast, probably more than he should. And the old loses to teams with, less. I mean, just look at his overall record since 2007. He's deserved what he's got, and that's essentially through 2021 here. And if you think otherwise, you're wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything that you said there.
I hate to be that blunt about it, but
and no offense, who was the reader? Dustin? Is that his
Dustin,
name?
yeah.
I mean, no offense, Dustin, but I think I never met somebody that starts with a sentence of "convince me," that's willing to have their mind be changed. I think that's your stance on Tomlin, and that's fine. I get it. There's been expectations that haven't been met, and this team's got to, like Dave said, and I agreed with him. This team's got to win a Super Bowl. That's the expectation, and if they don't do that in the rest of Ben's era and time in Pittsburgh, then it's a disappointment. I mean, I understand, but there's also a lot more to coaching than just the things that you outlined, and I think you want to look at just the big picture with him as well.
And make no mistake about it, if he doesn't win a Super Bowl in the next 3 years, there's not going to be a 4th year. I don't think. Unless we're talking about they were in the Super Bowl all 3 years and they just lost, but there should be the expectation for that in the next 3 years. Period.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Period. I hate to be that blunt on it. Look, there's you either like Tomlin or you hate Tomlin. There's not many middle ground people when it comes to him, right?
Maybe. I mean, there's vocal minorities on, I think, each extreme of it. I think sometimes there is that middle ground that just doesn't get their voice heard. But yeah, I mean, I generally agree.
All right. Here we go. Brian Ing writes in, can you please discuss the viability of the 3-3-5 defense? What do you think it'll be put in use this season? If so, with what personnel? Thank you.
The viability is just getting your best pass rushers on the field, getting a guy like Javon Hargrave snaps where it's hard to get him snaps. Do you think you're going to see it a lot this year? Probably not, especially knowing all that they've invested in the inside linebacker position. Once I talked about that in the offseason before Mark Barrett and before drafting Devin Bush, but unless there's injuries there, when you run a 3-3-5, you're going to have 2 outside linebackers and 1 inside linebacker. Probably want to have 2 on the field as much as possible this year because of all the talent that you have. So you're probably not going to see a lot of it. Maybe some game plan specific stuff. Injuries could change things, but probably going to see your traditional 2-4-5 nickel.
Bryce writes in, hey guys, can't wait for more Camp Edition podcasts and breakdowns. Here are my questions. Can you guys talk a little bit more about Brian Allen? He seems to have the necessary size and speed to be able to play over slow down tight ends, slow down tight ends, and to carve out some role on the defense. What do you think is holding him back as a player? Is it just opportunity, or is it just that he's just not talented enough to really make a push for playing time? It's B. He's just he hasn't really shown much, to be honest with you. And really, he's a converted wide receiver. There really wasn't much to go off of his college tape either.
Yeah, I mean, physically he's got talent. That's what got him drafted. He's tall, he can run fast, but the technique hasn't been there. I thought he took a step back last year. I thought he did a poor job of staying in phase, getting out of phase, and looking back for the ball when he shouldn't. So he's really fighting for a spot right now. It's hard to envision a pass. Obviously, didn't make the team last year. Got put in the practice squad, called up midway through. With the cornerbacks that they've added, that window of making it is smaller and smaller. He's got to have an all-star kind of camp.
And I asked, I think in the last show, I said, man, is there a possibility maybe some free safety? Look, you can't keep trying to put the square peg in the different size holes, right? I mean, it's worth a try maybe, but I mean, how many position moves are you don't just need to flip flop, keep moving guys around. Either they're going to work or they're not.
Yeah, and I'm not aware of him getting any work at safety, and if he hasn't yet, then he probably won't, but I guess we'll see what happens. I'm not opposed to it because of the whole depth, less depth at safety than corner, but if he's having technique issues, above the neck issues, moving a different position, probably not going to help him out a whole lot.
We'll know real quick from you at training camp here. Jeff M., fairly frequent listener, first-time writer, okay? Oh, first-time emailer. Great talk lately about the tight end position. I'll probably miss this somewhere, but what is the status of Jake McGee? Seems he had some promise until his injury last training camp. I believe he is on another team available. I think here's the thing with Jake McGee. He had that nasty Achilles, right? Last year. That's a bitch of an injury, man. From athletes that I've talked to in the past that have had it, and especially football players, that is a tough one. He did make some noise, but mostly, look, he was impressive as a blocker. I'll put it plain and simple there, and mostly from what I remember, a blocker on the move on sort of like those split zones, right, Alex? And the double, 22 double and stuff like that the Steelers like to run there. That's where he stuck out the most. But even so, he didn't, he got a large portion of snaps, and then he had the Achilles happen last year. The Steelers did not even exclusive rights tender him during the offseason, and I don't think I've seen where he signed. I think he's still a free agent there. So, look, there's a bunch of guys that, and Mike Tomlin, said some guys will look good underneath the lights and not look good in practice and in shorts and all like that. He showed some flashes there, but I don't think it's enough to lose any sleep over there. But I mean, he did. I remember writing and watching him quite a bit. I think last year on the move as a blocker, he was fine, and I think sometimes as a down into the line tight end as well too. Who knows? Maybe he's still trying to get over that Achilles here a little bit, because like I said, that's a tough injury to get over. And maybe once he is healthy, maybe they will maybe add him back to the practice squad or something.
It was real quick. It was definitely the injury that why he's in the team. He did try out, was part of the tryouts for the XFL, so he's working. I don't know if he's at full health or not, but he was part of the XFL tryouts recently.
Let's see, and I recall a place kicker last year for the Ravens in preseason who had an amazing leg. I seem to remember he got injured, attacked late one night, if my memory is correct. Not sure where he is now. Thoughts on him for some competition? I'm not recalling the name. Are you recalling the name of that Ravens kicker?
I don't. I remember the story. I don't remember the name, but I think they have what they have right now.
Yeah, and look, I'm not convinced if Boswell doesn't work out that the other kid that they have in there is going to be the answer.
Yeah, it could be. They're more likely to go outside the organization than they are with Matthew, right?
Right, and Mike Tomlin did talk today that don't be fooled. They're going to put Boswell in plenty of high pressure situations, with a lot on the line, evidently during training camp, to see how he responds there. Jeff, thanks for the email there. I think that knocked out most of there, Alex. There, so okay.
I think that's basically all I have for the preview. Just to kind of take a second and talk about how this is going to work if you're new to Depot or new to our camp experience. You can follow me on Twitter at Alex_Kozora, and I try to tweet out as much as I can about it. Then we come back each day and I do my full report, which has a play-by-play of everything that happened. Like I said, I'm going to try to track yards this year. Fingers crossed. We'll see how well that goes, just to kind of give another layer and some more information and clarity. And then Dave and I talk about, recap the practice after almost every practice and have a brief podcast podcast, talk about that stuff. So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of how we do things. Want to thank our sponsor, Touring Plans. Been supporting us for a couple years now. So check them out if you're planning a trip to Disney. But just want to give an overview of how camp works. We have our training camp diary each day where we just try to be as comprehensive as possible. And our goal is if we can make you feel like you're at Latrobe with us, then we've done our job, and that's why we're as in depth as we are.
We every night that we can during training camp, we try to wrap it up with Alex and try to give you 40 minutes worth of information in 30 minutes. That winds up taking 50 minutes.
That's perfect. That's really well said.
Isn't that about what we do? I mean,
It really
we
is.
go into it telling, I know before we start the show, we go, okay, let's try to give them 40 minutes of information in 30 minutes. Well, we do that, except it takes 50 minutes to give it. So, but I mean, look, it's only for a couple weeks here, and obviously night practices and probably one other one in there. We won't have a night show, but for the most part, we should have a wrap-up podcast every night. And you got to be patient with us because I try, when he gets home, he's got to write his report and get that up, and then by the time we record and I try to get it posted, sometimes on the East Coast, it's probably 9-10 o'clock. That's just the nature of the beast and how this thing works. So just be patient with us. And look, if you do like this, and this is the time of year where we really push for donations too. So either find a GoFundMe page that Alex has set up on Steelers Depot, or if you can't find that, just go to SteelersDepot.com and hit that donate button upper right navigational bar. If you like the podcast, you want to donate. Look, one-time donation of $50. You don't have to. We won't bother you personally for another year. How's that? But in all seriousness, we have a lot of great donators who listen to the show. We appreciate you. If you can do it, fine. If you can't, that's fine too. So until Friday night, Alex, have a safe trip out there to Latrobe on Friday, and Alex and I will get to be back on Friday night to give you a wrap-up of the Steelers' first training camp practice. You can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. And that's it. As always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.